very glad about your presence in our sharing communication agency to speak about a very important problem, the phenomenon of feminicide and the gender equality. What do you think about the last homicide in Italy?
First of all, very sad to hear about the female femicide, and all forms of violence are absolutely unacceptable against women and girls or anybody per se. I think it's very unfortunate to see that there is growing evidence on violence and atrocities against women and girls. So I really think it's a deep rooted issue to really understand why violence against women and girls. It is very much linked to the ideologies perpetuated by a patriarchal system and the hegemonies of masculinities that somehow promote the notion that women and girls are commodities and products to deal with. And I think when a young person, and we've seen this in different parts of the world, when a young man in certain cases hears a no, they decide, unfortunately, to take some grave steps, which can result in, not just mutilation, but in this case, particular killing. So I think there are two important strategies which really have to be looked into. I think we need to, first of all, as societies, make a pledge that every single girl and woman must be respected for their human rights and to be treated as equals as any other human being. That is fundamental to working on gender equality. We are in year 2016, and we should really behave like that. Every single human being is equal, and we are talking about a human rights-based society. The second is that we really need to educate our boys, adolescent boys, and young men and older men to change and challenge the notions of patriarchy that somehow condemn and discriminate women and feminities. I think it's important that we work with our boys and young men to recognize that every single girl and young woman must be respected as equal partners, and under no circumstances their rights can be violated or can go on to this extreme situation of femicide, which is unacceptable. And be it sexual violence, physical violence, psychological violence, mental violence, online violence, it's absolutely unacceptable. So UN Women very clearly has zero tolerance towards this. And in our work, we've been really reaching out to young people, and through a LEAP strategy, what we call is L for leadership of young women in all spheres: economic, social, political, cultural, civil, environmental spheres are so critical. We talk about calling for young women to take on economic empowerment and skills development, reforming the education system to respond to young women's needs, adolescent girls being the center of the conversation, promoting STEM and STEAM, entrepreneurial skills, leadership skills to be part of girls and young women's agenda. But the A we call in the LEAPS framework is action to end all forms of violence against young women and girls. For example, we call the 25th of each month, based on 25th of November, which is the UN Day to end all forms of violence against women and girls. We call 25th the Youth Action Day to really adopt that day every month to voice against violence, but also take action to end all forms of violence against women and girls across the world. And similarly, we call for 3 Ps. 1 P is about participation, partnership with young women and young women-led organizations. And this is where it becomes a little different, is that we also call for the second P, partnership with young men in gender equality. Because gender equality is about all genders. And we really call young men not to be seen as every young man is violating, because they're not. But the ones who do, we really want to call for them to become partners in gender equality. For example, through a He for She campaign, where we ask young men and men across the world to stand up and become a He for She and take a pledge, a solidarity pledge on gender equality. And last not the least, which is often left out in the work of youth, is what we call for the last P is the intergenerational partnerships. Because we have to understand that working on gender transformation is a cyclical process. It has to be seen from a life cycle perspective. So how do we ensure that an infant girl, an adolescent girl, young woman, and an older woman are all part of society which they live in right now, can really experience an equal and a respected, respected, society that respects the human rights. Similarly, how do we work with an infant boy, adolescent boy, young men, and older men to really understand and promote gender equality as an important human value? So really, we have to look at violence and where it comes from, understand it from a behavioral perspective, but also from a societal perspective, challenge social norms and value systems that somehow promote still unequal gender practices. I'll give you an example. In a recent survey that UN conducted, it was called the My World Survey, which reached about 10 million people across the world and 7 million young people from about 193 countries. And just to give you one specific example, when young women were asked to prioritize gender equality across the world, young women took on issues of gender equality as a number two, number three, number four, or number five priority. But if we draw a parallel to where did young men put gender equality, and I must say, and be very discouraged to inform you, that unfortunately in this year and age, young men thought gender equality was not a priority. They put gender equality out of a list of 16, they put it as number 14, number 15, or number 16. So I think there is a very strong need to really understand the way socialization and social institutions are perpetuating gender stereotypes. At the same time, we use the social institutions to actually reverse and become partners and supporters of gender equality. And social institutions such as family, education, religion, the market, the political system, and media, which is again very, very important, such as yours, to really promote good practices and condemn practices that put women and girls as commodities and as as products to just deal with. So that is really my core message. That will be very important that you join the global movement, work with us to really apply the work of LEAPS framework into your own societies and the tools that we're working. We have a working group on youth and gender equality, which I invite you and everybody that you know to join the global growing movement and concern to really create a transformation. And the only way it can happen is to really unify and become a movement online and offline, in families, outside families. Really look at the ecological model of, I would say, human development and really challenge, but at the same time show through good practice that it can be done. So if a young boy picks up, and organizes a street theater after a Friday mosque prayer and challenges all the people that, that we must promote girls' education, or boys in Ethiopia go out on their campuses and say that we should not use sexting or sexualized languages against women and girls, it can be done. If young men in Canada say that we must educate younger boys and adolescent boys against gender stereotyping, against discrimination, I think we need to amplify such efforts and really take that to another level. So I'm very happy to speak and very happy to work with you and really call upon you to join us, and really all our tools and our information and all our anything which we can do to take this forward, we're very much available. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Uh, what's the best goal that we can realize with Education Jubilee?
We are in a very important phase in the history, and I purposely use the word history because we need to change the history into history. Because when the world leaders adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, they also adopted goal number 5, which calls upon gender equality, empowerment of women and girls, which is cross-cutting in all 17 goals, including the education. I think education system is so fundamental to the entire process, right from the early childhood development all the way up to high school and beyond high school into tertiary and post-university eras. Because we need to look at messaging which is going out of the education. Are they promoting stereotypes? Are they promoting role modeling that actually discriminate against women and girls? Or are they doing the opposite by showing equal numbers of role models and the language in the textbook is gender sensitive? The practices are, gender sensitive. Sports is very important there, where women and girls are not allowed to do certain sports because indoor and outdoor safety issues. How do we create enabling environments where girls can go to school as equal as boys? And last but not the least is really the issue of looking at the informal education system and seeing that there is also in the education system of where many schools introduce value system, there is a very clear course on gender sensitization and gender equality.
The oh, l'audio, the audio. So, sorry, I don't.
Sorry.
Okay, now here is okay again. Uh, when about the religion, there are other discrimination in the world. And another question: you have no Malala. What is the best example that we can take from there?
I think it's very important to work with faith organizations and religion institutions and leaders who actually promote gender equality. So there are many who do. And I think that's exactly where the conversation is. That how do you work with, for example, I've been working with some youth organizations, and they've been really looking at their own faith and looking at aspects of faith that promote equality and amplifying that. It is the misinterpretation and the misconstruct of the religion that unfortunately creates gender stereotypes. So the example I was giving you was from a location in Pakistan and Balochistan where the boys groups organized street theater after a Friday mosque prayer and invited everybody to join the street theater about girls' education, and basically reached out to the Imam and brought the Imam on board and said, let's understand Islam in a better way. And Imam talked and cited verses which very much talked about empowerment of women and girls. Similar thing you see in Christianity, similar thing you see in Buddhism, similar thing you see in issues of indigenous communities. So faith is very important when you're working with young people on talking about gender equality.
Thank you, Ravi. And we can see together in Julie in Italy to speak about all the other organizations that won't win with the legality and without other feminicide. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
You are very, very important for us. Bye.
No, I mean, we all are important and we have to do our part and do it together. Thank you so much.
Bye, sir.
Bye.